Yud Gimel. Good morning. Today is the 27th of Av, the 14th of August. We're on page 13. ולכן צריך לבאר היתרון שבמוחין דבתן תורה שנתעורר בברית בין הבתרים ונגלה למטה לאחר יציאת מצרים נגד קיום התורה דאבות שאמור הז"ל כי הם אברהם אבינו את כל התורה כולה עד שלא ניתנה. So the first example of one mindset leaving and another one appearing is of course what happened in the Exodus from Egypt. So what did they have before? Before that they had the mindset of the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right?
Why did you say they had the mindset of Abraham and then you picked up the mindset of Yitzchak?
It's the same one. Yeah, but it's but the understanding of Hashem, there are different aspects of Hashem, but it's the same mindset of relating to Hashem. It's the same mindset of how do you do avoda? What does it mean to do avoda? They didn't have mitzvahs then, so they did what they did. Okay, so now he wants to explain, so what does it mean that the sages say that Avram, and obviously Yitzchak and Yaakov, they all kept the entire Torah, if they didn't have the Torah yet. So what does that mean? Because obviously there was a change in the mindset, right? So when the sages say that Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov kept the entire Torah, meaning that in their time there was already something called keeping the Torah, so that must mean something. It can't mean what we mean after Matan Torah. We can't mean the same thing as what we mean after the Torah was given. That can't be. Okay, so what does that mean? Because they didn't have any commandments. They weren't commanded to do anything. So what did they do? What was their mindset? Okay. That was the only exception. ועל זה נאמר, וירא להבות בכל שקי, ושמי הוויה לא נודעתי להם. Okay. So, to explain this, he says that's what Hashem says to Moshe at the beginning of Vayera. When he explains these things to him, so he says, I revealed myself to Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, to the Avos, with the name Kel Shakai, and I didn't reveal myself to them with the name Havaya. That's what that verse is coming to say, that I revealed myself in one way, I didn't reveal myself another way. And again, everybody says, what do you mean? Avram uses the name Havaya. It says Havaya by Avram. It's true, but that's not how Hashem revealed himself to them. They knew that from their own chakira, from their own philosophy. They understood that God was Havaya. Havaya means that Haya Oveviyeh, that he is, he was, he will be. Okay? So he's limitless. They understood that from their own understanding. But that's not how Hashem revealed himself to them. How did he reveal himself to them? He revealed himself to them with the name Kel Shakai. Now what does this name mean? Hinei Kel Shakai u'mekor ha'gvul. Kel Shakai represents God's finite aspects, the source of limits. Not that Hashem is finite. Hashem is both finite and infinite.
Where did they get this name Kel Shakai?
That he revealed. He said that to them. Ani Kel Shakai yitalech lefanai ve'yeh tamim. Right? He says that to Avram. He uses that name. When he reveals himself to Avram, he uses that name. When the Torah says that Avram knew Havaya, it says, Vayomer Havaya el Hashem. It's el Avram. Havaya said to Avram. Avram then understood there was Havaya, but he didn't say to him, this is my name. Meaning he didn't reveal this aspect of serving him. He only revealed Kel Shakai.
Which meant what?
The source of limits. Let's see. בתחילה היה העולם נמתח עד בלי די, עד שאמר לעולמו די. So where do we get this idea from? Because it says, the sages say in Chagiga, that in the beginning the world was expanding without limit. Everything was expansive. And then God had to limit it, so it wouldn't go to infinity. How did he limit it? He used the name Kel Shakai, שאמר לעולמו די. So that's how they understand this word.
He called that stop.
And that is the name that represents that stopping, that limiting. Okay? שהוא עניין כוח המגביל, שלא יהיו עולמות בבחינת אין סוף. And that is the power of limit that doesn't allow the world to continue without end, to expand without end, to grow without end, to be infinite in everything. You think about it spatially, it's not just spatially, it's temporally, it's in terms of the soul, it's in every single aspect the world would have been infinite, growing without end, and he stopped it. He put a limit, he put a cap on it. וזהו בכוח העילוי למעלה עד אין קץ, ויש פירוש אחר בכוח הירידה של מטה עד אין תכלית, שהיה נמתחת בלי די באופן של עולמות והנבראים מגושמים ביותר, עד שהדומם הגשמי היה נחשב רוחני לגביו. כמו עתה המלאכים לגבי דומם צמא חיים מדבר הגשמיים, ולא נוכל לצייר זה איך הוא מאחר שאמר לו מאוד די ולרד ולהתגשם, ומה שנשאר בכוח ויכולת אין סוף, אין בכוחנו לצייר בכוח השכל הניתן לנו כמו שכתוב במקום אחר. So he says, when I just said to you that he limited things, so you think about it automatically that it's in terms of expanse, growing larger. What does that mean? So for instance, imagine that man had no limit on his mind. Let's think about the mind for a second. If our mind had no limits,
Go crazy.
I don't know if we'd go crazy. We could understand things that we don't understand now. Okay?
You could have too much information coming in.
No, you'd have a mind that would be able to handle it. That's exactly what it means. So you would have something that would be able to handle it. So you would be knowledgeable at a completely different level. So it says that's one side of it. Another side of it is saying, the same side, sorry, but giving another example, is that you could be as spiritual as you wanted. Right now, you have limits. Why do you have limits? Your body imposes limits on you. You would like to stay up all night, but you can't.
I'm not spiritual at all.
Okay. So some people, so you have limits. But that's, he says, thinking about it from below to above, in terms of not the expand. We think about, whenever we hear the Gemara today, we connect it to the Big Bang without wanting to even. That's just how it sounds to the modern ear. But the Gemara there is not talking about the Big Bang or anything at all. It didn't know about the Big Bang. What it's talking about is, in Chagiga, the one that says, Amar lo lamodai, that he said to his world enough. Really what it's talking about is limits, and when you think about limits, it's spiritual limits. That's really what it's talking about. It's how spiritual can you be? That's going up. That's on the way up. But he says the same thing here in parentheses. He says the same thing is true going down. Meaning that the world would become more coarse than it is now. She'amar lo lamodai, he also had to stop the expanse in the other direction, that it shouldn't become too physical, so that there wouldn't be any possibility for something spiritual. And he says it's hard for us to even imagine what that would mean. What would it mean for the world to be so coarse that there wouldn't be any room for spirituality? He says, so he stopped it in the middle. Today, you would say,
Have a look out the window.
no, you wouldn't be able, everything would be so coarse that no spirituality would shine through. He said because he stopped it,
There's no spirituality.
No, it's not true. Everybody has spirituality. People have a feeling of their neshama. What do you mean? Every single human being does. If you were so coarse, if the body was so demanding, that there would be no...
To say you're a man and a woman, for goodness sake, the whole world's gone completely cuckoo.
That's actually a problem of spirituality. It's not a problem of physicality. If you would claim that it comes from the body, then they're right. We claim it comes from the psyche. It's a psychological problem. In this case, it's what we would call not the psychology of a single individual. It's a sociological problem. It's something caused by the society around you. It's a disease of society. That's something else. That's spiritual. You wouldn't get something like that. The person would be so coarse in who they are, they could never imagine doing anything against their body. The fact that they can even imagine going against their very physical nature is an example of how they're spiritual. Okay, it's very important to note this. So, he says we can't even imagine what it would look like. We can't even imagine what it would look like for the world to be so coarse physically. But so today, you say that the earth is exactly not too close to the sun and not too far away. It's called the Goldilocks region. That's what they like to call it. So the world is in the Goldilocks region between spirituality and physicality. That's what this name, Sha'amar lo olamot dai, Kel Shakai, that's what it did. It stopped us somewhere in the middle so that we could go up and we could go down. But you'd have room. Okay. Ushmi Havaya lo nodati lehem, but my name Havaya I didn't reveal to them. Hagam shekatuv etzel avot vayera alav Havaya, like we just said. It says that Hashem appeared to him, but that was from Abraham's understanding. וכן מקרות רבים להוויה הנראה וכיוצא, הוא רק בחינת שם הוויה דלתתא שנקרא הוויה על שם שמהווה שהוא מקור לעולמות. So he says, what did they perceive? They perceived the lower aspect, the lower dimension of Havaya. Havaya Dilatata. What does that mean? The God is the progenitor of the worlds. Everything that exists comes from him. He is the Mehaveh. He's the one who brings everything into being. אבל בבחינת הוויה דילאלה, שזה נאמר הוא שמי הוויה, שהוא כמו שכתוב, ואני הוויה הוא שמי, שהוא מרומם ומנוסה מלהיות מקור למקור העולמות, לא נודעתי להם. But Havaya, which represents God as he is to himself, and there he doesn't have to be the progenitor, the creator of the world. He's beyond that. The world doesn't exist at that level. That he didn't reveal to them at all. That's the Havaya that's beyond human conception. Because my conception of Hashem is always in relation to the world.
How can Hashem reveal something which is not understandable?
That's exactly the point.
No, you said he didn't reveal it. It is not revealable.
Meaning that he didn't speak from that place which is outside of the worlds. Everything that happened was within the world. Everything that they saw Hashem as being was, that's what I called it last time, animism in the previous times. You perceive Hashem from within the world. You don't perceive Hashem as what we would say sovev kol almin, that is beyond the world. Sovev kol almin is not the right term, but that is beyond even the creation itself. In order to command, the command has to come from outside the world. The command can't come from inside. I'll give you an example. If you have a company of soldiers, okay, one of them can tell the...
You're no better than me.
You're right. You're the same as us. So therefore there's no sense of receiving a command unless the command is coming from outside your sphere of influence or your sphere of understanding. So, it has to come from above. And then he didn't reveal to them, and that's exactly what we mean. Because what does it mean then that they did the Torah? They fulfilled the Torah. They fulfilled it as a natural way of life, as a lifestyle. But they couldn't do it as commandments. That's what changed, right? They didn't have the notion of command. So you said rightly that they had one commandment. What was the one commandment that they had? They had bris milah. They had the circumcision. And Avram was waiting for that. That's why he didn't circumcise himself. So he says, it's the nature of the world to circumcise yourself, even though it sounds like it's unnatural. Why would you change nature? No, you understand. The point of nature, look at mankind. Nature is always trying to go outside of itself. That's part of being part of nature. That's part of the whole story. So for the circumcision, which is also a natural act, Avram waited. And he waited until Hashem commanded him.
The British royal family always do circumcision. It's a matter of...
Yeah, but it's because they think they're Jews.
No.
Yeah, they have this whole thing that they're the real Jews. You know this. The British, no, the British are crazy. They're the 10 tribes. You don't know the whole thing. You know about it.
The British royal family...
The British... Right. The replacement theology is strongest there, more than anywhere else in the world.
What did you call it?
Replacement theology, which means that Israel is no longer Am Yisrael. Israel is the Christians. That's where it comes from, as far as I know. וזהו כמו שפרש רש"י, זה לא הודעתי אין כתיב כאן, אלא לא נודעתי. It's not that he didn't tell them about this. They knew about this, but I did not reveal myself this way to them. לא ניכרתי במידת אמיתית שלי, כי על דרך הפשוט ההבדל בין גדר ידיעה לגדר הכרה. Oh, so now he's going to tell us, he's going to go into a few paragraphs of explaining the difference between knowledge and consciousness. Yedi'ah and hakara. Okay, really, hakara, translating as consciousness, is a very modern explanation of the word, but its roots are in Reb Hillel and Reb Isaac. They, and apparently, if both of them say it, they both received it from the Alter Rebbe in some way. I don't know where I do know. I do know in Likutei Torah, the Alter Rebbe builds the basis of this distinction between hakara and yediah, between consciousness and knowledge, two separate things. And he's going to explain now that they had knowledge, but they didn't have consciousness. Okay, the consciousness was something that changed. That's the mindset that changed, and that we'll begin to see, God willing, tomorrow.